I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Hot Pursuit.
All right, we have a really fun episode today, a really fun interview.
We have a lot to cover.
And there's a lot to cover. Okay, let's start with LA, because you are in LA, and the last time that we spoke, we recorded last Friday's episode, I think last Tuesday. So, you know, it was on fire, but it wasn't as bad as it has been.
You know, it's so funny because a week ago, it's so funny. I remember I saw some smoke way off in the distance toward the ocean. And, you know, honestly, that happens from time to time. You might see like some random, very small plume of smoke. And I'm on the 31st floor here in Century City, so I have a very, very good view of a lot. And I remember texting it to you, and it was like, oh, that's weird. There's some smoke out there. But, you know, I had obviously no idea about the devastation to follow, and that was the start of the Palisades fire. And so, yeah, you know, it's just been a really surreal week and a half, and gosh, it's been really hard to see everything that's happened to so many of our friends and family members who have lost everything. So definitely, you know, here at Bloomberg, we've all been banding together to try to provide comprehensive coverage and sensitive coverage and helpful coverage.
I think people are going to want an update on how you're doing.
Oh, yeah. You know, thanks for asking. Thankfully, we did not have to evacuate. We were, for the Sunset Fire, the evacuation line ended at the 101. And basically we were just on the other side of the 101 near the Hollywood Bowl. So we did have bags packed and in the car, and we did go down and scope out traffic patterns so we could be sure that we could leave quickly if we needed to. And I definitely have never had to pack as if I may not be coming back before in my life. So that was a very clarifying exercise. And
but what did you bring?
I have to say, honestly, the only things that I grabbed were a couple pieces of my grandmother's very old jewelry. I grabbed a wedding photo, a watercolor that my sister had given me, and my passport. And made sure I had on, you know, a cool coat and some cool boots. But that was honestly it. And, you know, it's so cliche to say, but it really does clarify in your mind what are the important things in life. And things are obviously have sentimental value but at the end of the day, they're just things. And so, you know, it's been it's just surreal because honestly, you know, the skies are blue today. I'm at the office. The world moves on. And also there are really thousands of people who are going to be affected and continue to be affected for quite a long time from this, including people I know, close friends. So, I
mean, I think it's mind-boggling to try and understand the scale of the devastation. It's just not really comprehensible because, you know, we're talking about 40,000 acres burned and people who not only had to grab, you know, stuff they wanted for themselves, but also whole families, you know, that are going to be not only looking for a place to stay, but also with, you know, elderly people in tow, with babies, short on diapers, short on formula. I mean, it's just, you know, it's unimaginable, all of the different variations of suffering that are going on right now in Los Angeles. And to me, I think about the years or even decades that it's going to take to build back. It's just unprecedented, I think, in American history. Is it fair to say on that level? I mean, we've had huge hurricanes, obviously, Katrina and what we saw in Florida and more recently in the Carolinas. But this is just, I can't.
Yeah, of course. You know, the latest estimate I saw was a $40 billion damages estimate by some of the insurance providers and the banks. Obviously, over 180,000 people evacuated. And I would just say, too, from an outsider perspective, and I certainly still feel like an LA outsider, it's easy to think that, well, this is just only affecting, more wealthy Hollywood people who lived in this very upper class neighborhood called the Pacific Palisades. But that is really untrue. A lot of the homes were family owned and passed down, especially in Altadena and Pasadena. These are hardworking people who, might have been there for generations and shared the home with their family. And there are whole ecosystems that are involved in, these neighborhoods, not just the people who live there, but people who are working in those neighborhoods as well, whose livelihoods depend on those neighborhoods too. So there's really a trickle-down effect.
Let's transition from...
All right.
It's obviously horrendous news. It's one of the worst natural disasters in American history. But having said that, this is a show about cars, and we typically focus on vehicles. And so when I'm thinking of LA, I think of a car town. So, and I imagine all these structures burning down. I imagine not only the homes that are so important to everybody, but I also imagine the vehicles. And a lot of these places, when we were talking to McKeel Hagerty, he talks about the car that he always worked on with his dad. And that's not a unique story. There's a lot of people who have worked on a car with their dad or have, saved up for years to get this vehicle. And it means more to them than just some rich guy who bought a Venom F5. So I think a lot of those cars have been destroyed. Yeah,
that's really a key point, and it's something I really tried to touch on with the story that we published about the car community and how these fires will affect that. Just the idea that it's not about the monetary value of a lot of these cars for most people. I've heard stories firsthand of people who actually left a supercar in the garage and drove away in, their daughter's car because they knew their daughter loved her car so much. And they had to make a Sophie's choice between the supercar and their daughter's car. And they took their daughter's car because that had such a strong sentimental value. And I think that is really true for a lot of people. I spoke with Matt Farah, of course, our friend who also has West Side Storage, and Eli Kogan, who has Auto Car Club as far away as Arizona. And they both are just telling me that they are dealing with a bunch of people who are making choices about which cars to save, to try to preserve, to try to restore. And it's not about the price of the car. It's about some sort of emotional bond, sentimental value, family story, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. I mean, for most people, most people don't have a Ferrari, 250 GTO, right? So
yes.
But have a valuable or a couple valuable cars maybe to choose from, and they're going to choose the one they want to keep forever. So it doesn't matter which one is more valuable. Or, but a lot of people, unfortunately, only have one vehicle like that. Or, a lot of people have one vehicle that they've saved up for, one vehicle that means a lot to them, and that's been destroyed. And it'll be interesting to see how insurance pays out as well. That's going to be another story you'll probably write.
Definitely. And I've started to ask, a lot of the insurance companies tell me it's too early, they're still receiving claims, et cetera, et cetera. But for instance, Mercury Insurance is pointing to, I don't know if you remember, the Paradise Fire in 2018 that basically just leveled the town of Paradise, California, and most homeowners insurance companies do not insure for fire protection there. And Mercury Insurance has, as of January 7th, started again issuing homeowner policies for Paradise, California. And I spoke with one of their guys there last week who said, look, a lot of the cars in the Palisades fire, for instance, were abandoned, and possibly abandoned with keys in them, so that first responders could move the car if they need to. So
as Steve Gutenberg requested.
Right. So technically, that's not a stolen vehicle, and, maybe it's damaged, but it wasn't destroyed by a fire technically. But, obviously what they say, we'll see if they follow up on it, but what they say is obviously even though that scenario is not itemized in the insurance policy, we will cover that.
It's got to be covered.
Yeah. I mean, Haggerty, another one that we mentioned, has already opened a sort of pop-up response center at their garage in Van Nuys, and they are treating this as they treated the hurricane fallout from the hurricanes in Florida, where they've got basically literally a crisis response center with a dedicated team helping people as they file claims for cars. And obviously Haggerty specializes in collector car insurance. So there's a lot of effort going into it.
I imagine most insurers are going to try and do what's right for the customer. Also, there's going to be some pressure from government agencies.
Of course.
But
yes.
It's the person with, I feel really for the person who doesn't have a collector car, but say you bought a truck, brand new 2 years ago, and you've put 30,000 miles on it, and it was the love of your life, maybe, with a 6.2 liter V8, and insurance isn't going to buy you a new truck like that, right? They're going to give you the value of the car now, and it's just kind of it's a huge bummer.
It's a huge bummer. There's nothing else to say. It sucks. Life is hard.
When I went through all of the Instagram and sort of social media footage of people who had burned out shells of vehicles, I noticed so many of them were 911s.
I know. I saw that too.
Did you not? Many Porsches.
Yes. I have to imagine those were sort of filtered toward the top because they were the most cringeworthy.
Yeah,
I have to imagine that truly in hard numbers, it wasn't like we lost a ton of Porsches, but I did see all of those photos. Obviously, they are the ones that ring our hearts stronger than if we see a modern sedan that's like a Honda. Of course, we're going to cry a little bit more when we see something air-cooled. But I can't, you can only drive one car at once. This is the problem. You can only drive one car at once. And, of course, Magnus and I discussed we both were going to drive a car, and
did you leave in 2 cars?
Yes.
Nice.
The route that we did not evacuate, but we did drive down to the freeway to be able to see how traffic was going. And we had it planned out, and we have a neighbor who has 2 minis, and he said he was going to leave with a mini on either foot. And I thought that was so funny. And it was black humor, of course. You can only drive one car at once, so I have to imagine that a lot of people did have to make a really painful choice. Again, it's just stuff, but it still has meaning. The memories do count for something.
Yeah, of course. Just as much as I mean, in my mind, just as much as a work of art.
Of course.
If you're scrambling to get out of your house and your grandmother gave you a Picasso sketch or something, that's probably one of the things that you're going to grab. Or if you happen to have enough about art to mention something amazing. But what's that guy called? Rothko? What's his?
Yeah, Rothko, Mark Rothko.
There you go.
He's
if you have a Rothko
hanging
in your living room, then you're probably going to grab
that. We're so big, but
Speaking of Venom F5s, you got a hold of John Hennessey, and he's got something special that they're working on, completely unrelated to this. But what is the Warhawk?
The Warhawk is a new vehicle that they are developing, which is based on a Jeep Rubicon. And this is part of a whole new division that Hennessey is initiating. I'm really fascinated just with Hennessey in general and their many successes since the 1990s. And they've just announced that they're calling it a strike force vehicle for military, police, and sportsmen. It's called the Hennessey Warhawk. They're actually going to unveil it January 21st in Las Vegas, but it's basically a Jeep Gladiator Rubicon that they're saying is going to be lighter and faster than similar vehicles. I'm assuming they mean similar vehicles like, for instance, a Hummer. Maybe a little more nimble and a little more able to navigate some tricky situations. So I think it's fascinating. And honestly, I wanted to have John on to talk about it because it has felt a little like Armageddon here in LA the past weekend. This is exactly the type of vehicle I would want to be in.
Well, let's bring John in and talk about it right now. John Hennessey. Dude, why don't we start with, do you have connections to LA that are, going through difficult times, or do you have any?
I do. I've got a lot of friends out there. I was trading some text messages with Johnny Lieberman, and just to think of all the people that I know kind of in that neck of the woods. And the weird thing is I went out to LA for a day trip I went with a client to go look at a Venom F5 that we have out in Beverly Hills at Galpin. And so Biden was at LAX, so we were going to my client's plane. We get diverted to Long Beach, and as soon as we got in the rental car going up to 405, I saw a little bit of smoke. And I'm like, I wonder what that is. And then we got up towards LAX, and like the smoke cloud looked like a meteorite had hit the earth, and I could see flames from 20 miles away. That was a week ago, right? So that was like, I'm texting Bruce Myers in Beverly Hills. He didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
And so obviously, I mean, it's just what a crazy tragedy. And I'm sorry if you guys are out that way. Hannah, I know you're out that way. I'm sorry that you and your friends and maybe family have gone through that stuff. It's heartbreaking.
Thanks, John. I really appreciate the concern, and I totally echo your take on it. Matt and I were just talking about how last week when we recorded, I actually could see smoke from the Pacific Palisades fire. But, as you know, sometimes there are very small wildfires that break out and you kind of see them and you don't think anything of them in the moment because it's a rather not frequent, but it does happen. And they put them out in a matter of minutes and it's not a big deal.
Right.
So I can certainly relate to the feeling that, oh, that's weird, that's smoke, but there's not an initial sense of panic or concern at all. So very surreal time.
Yeah, very surreal time. So hopefully there's, I know they're still working on it, and hopefully there'll be some better weather. And gosh, I hope that, though again, wildfires are not new to Southern California, but man, this one really just seemed to get really, really bad. And I hope that whatever can be learned from it, it cannot repeat itself.
Completely.
Bury the power lines.
Yeah, that's what Matt and I were talking about. Let's do it.
We lost, the house that we raised our kids in got flooded from Hurricane Harvey in 2017. But we had 30 minutes notice before we had to leave the house. We moved our pictures upstairs. We were able to load some stuff up in the car. When you leave your house in the morning to go to work or wherever, you think you're coming home later that day, and then to not come home, every picture of your grandparents, priceless things that may not mean anything to anybody else, but they mean something to you.
Yes.
But they're gone forever. Times 12,000, 15,000 residences and businesses. That's heartbreaking. Doesn't even describe it.
For sure.
That's so true. And obviously, we have you on to talk about this new division you guys are doing. And the segue is, honestly, what I was telling Matt is it does feel a little like the end of the world here in LA. It certainly has the past week.
It looked like that. It looked like literally when I'm driving up the 405 and the cloud literally looked like a meteorite hit the earth.
Yes. It has felt like that a little bit. And obviously, this new division, when I see it and hear about it, I'm like, this is the kind of vehicle that I need to be able to manage the end of the world.
We've had different people, sportsmen, hunters, adventurers, ask us about specialized vehicles in the past. And we built our Velociraptor 6x6 truck. We built other 6x6 vehicles. But we've had more people that are kind of more in the police defense line of work ask us if we could lend our, engineering, design, and manufacturing expertise towards specialized vehicles for those type of applications. So, whether it's defense or hunting, or somebody wants to take a group of people out into the wild and go, photograph, wildlife or whatever, it's just kind of a natural pivot for us. So. One of our team members came up with a cool name that we trademarked maybe a year ago called Warhawk, which was the name of the P-40 fighter jet back kind of in the early 40s during World War II, was a fighter that they had in the Pacific, and kind of had the Flying Tigers was an old John Wayne movie from back in that time frame, and so that aircraft was called the Warhawk. We were kind of surprised that nobody had trademarked that. And they're wanting to put it on a Mustang or something. No, hold that, because I think there's something cool that we're going to work on that we might do in the defense sector. So anyway, we decided to put our hat into that ring. we decided to start with one of the groups that was asking us to do this work was interested in having kind of a Jeep application, and so we decided to build our first vehicle based off of the Jeep Gladiator Rubicon. And I think you guys have seen some images of the vehicle. We're going to unveil it at the SHOT Show in Las Vegas next week. So again, it's just kind of a starter point. It's like we really haven't put that much time and energy into it, but we wanted to, like, again, showcase some of our design and engineering capabilities and our experience with modifying tens of thousands of vehicles over the last 34 years. And it's just another kind of niche specialty industry. And I think a lot of people, companies that are in kind of the defense space, you don't hear much from them. They don't talk about it publicly. And
sure,
probably after this interview and after going to the SHOT Show, we may end up doing the same thing. But I kind of wanted at least, your followers and the people that know us for what we do kind of in the specialized automotive performance space to know that, again, whether somebody's looking to build a special vehicle for going off-road to, hunt critters or bad guys or go take pictures or whatever, that again, that's something that is evolving. And as our company has grown, we are branching out and doing kind of new and different things. And this is something that's new and very specialized.
It also makes sense. The branding makes sense given the Trailhawk and the Trackhawk, and I know you work on the Trackhawk as well, the last generation of the Cherokee, where you put it up to 1,000 horsepower.
Sure.
And so I think it fits well with the Jeep brand. But when I heard about it, I had the idea that you were actually going to make vehicles for the defense industry. So what you're saying is this is more for, maybe a militia at most, but more.
No. To your point so in the recent past, again, we've had multiple requests from different military organizations for specialized vehicles, but at the time we didn't have the bandwidth to do it. So after I'd heard, have the fourth, fifth, sixth request somewhere along the way, I'm like, okay, maybe that's the sector that we need to pay attention to. So we had in our product plans to do it last year. The vehicle that we've sent you pictures on that we'll unveil next week, we only started on that. We actually started building it maybe less than 90 days ago. So wow. It went together very quickly. There was a lot of planning that went into that. But again, we wanted to be able to showcase. So again, it's primarily focused towards defense, but police might want to use it. A fire department might. Like, again, if you've got a small fire up in the hills somewhere and you're trying to get some firefighters there, you have the ability to load up people, and they've got harnesses and seats and roll cage and whatnot. So again, it's a people mover for off-road situations. And again, it's designed to be light. It's designed to be fast. And there's all kinds of versatility from armoring or having medevac equipment or having command and control. Again, these are things as we work with some of the different agencies that are looking at these type of vehicles, they kind of tell us what they want, and then we come up with modular solutions to kind of give them what they want. But again, it's for a military application. Just feedback that we've gotten from some of the warfighters that we've worked with on this project. There's times when something like an armored Humvee is too conspicuous and too slow, and it's just kind of a sitting duck. So like if they want something that's light and fast, if you want something that you could maybe load up a couple of them in a big helicopter or back of a Chinook, or if you want something that becomes disabled on the battlefield and you want to retrieve it, not have to blow it up, you can go in there and sling it underneath a Chinook and haul it out of there. So again, I think there's kind of a purpose to the vehicle in that it's light, it's quick, it's kind of a, if you're defending the homeland and you got to go track down some bad guys and go get them, that's what kind of the Warhawk is designed to do. So again, there's other things that we're able to do. Again, this is just kind of a conversation starter. Again, the SHOT Show is the world's largest trade show that's kind of dedicated towards not just weaponry, but also for agencies and countries and law enforcement departments that utilize those type of technologies. And I've never been to the show, but we feel like that's kind of like the SEMA show for this segment, and we want to go there and engage with those different people that are looking for those type of vehicles, and if they need some sort of a custom solution, we're going to be great listeners to hear what they might need and see if there's something that we can help design, engineer, or produce for them if they have the need.
John, are you guys adding capacity at your plant in order to facilitate? And tell us about that. And then also, how quickly can you start getting these out to people who may want them?
Well, again, so to answer your first question, our business has grown tremendously. We are getting ready to add another 80,000 square feet of manufacturing space. So that'll put us, we're currently at 50, so let's give us 130,000 square feet. Now, within that, we have part of that's tuner school, part of that's Hennessey Special Vehicles, which designs, engineers, and manufactures the Venom F5. And we have future products coming from that division. But the big news that I don't know that we've shared with you guys in 2024, we entered into agreements with General Motors and Stellantis to where they are going to provide factory vehicles where they're going to inventory those vehicles on our property. So when we have a dealer that says, hey, we would like to order 10 Hennessey Tahoe RSTs with 625 horsepower, we can then bring them directly off of our property into our factory, modify those, and send those to the dealers. So the last 3 years, we've modified between 500 and 600 vehicles per year. This year, we feel like we'll have the demand and capacity to build over 1,000 units. So again, not, Porsche builds 10,000 911s a year. We're pushing 1,000. We may be at a couple thousand units in the next few years. So again, we've seen a lot of growth. There's a lot of demand for fun, fast vehicles. And again, how many of the Warhawks might we build? Again, that's, right now, if we had an order for those, I mean, again, it depends on what the client wants. But, if it's the base vehicle like we've shown you guys in scale, we can probably start producing those, within 90 to 120 days. Depending. Wow. Now, if it's specialized, it could take a lot longer depending on what special equipment they might want. But again, I think that's something that we're good at and getting better at, is being able to scale in small volumes fairly quickly, as opposed to.
Can you give us details on what kind of suspension components are you going to be using on that? And sure. Also, so, what are you doing with the powertrain?
Yeah, sure. So basically, we can right now the production vehicles come with the V6 gas engine. We've had requests for diesel. So again, if a group wanted a diesel version of the Jeep, we would probably buy a used one and modify that. But we could also do the conversion. It's a lot more work, a lot more expensive to do that. So again, the vehicles are going to typically be rated at probably a top speed of between 100 and 110 miles per hour. Serviceability, these vehicles are probably going to be going to the other side of the world at a place where it may be more challenging to get parts, to service them. So again, having a common fuel like get diesel in most places around the world, that would be an important consideration.
They have the 3-liter diesel, but the Pentastar obviously is an old, reliable motor. Yeah.
Correct. So, yeah, keep it simple. That's one of our.
And the suspension, do you use? I mean, the Rubicon already comes with some pretty beefy suspension, but do you?
Again, depending on the application, we can raise it, we can lower it, we can add a more aggressive suspension. Look, if somebody said, hey, can you put a Hellcat engine in it? We had a vehicle that we built over the years called the Maximus, which was a 1,000 horsepower version of the Jeep Wrangler and Gladiator. So we can do kind of any and all of that. So this is not like a deal where, one size fits all. It's going to be, they will be specially built based on the very specific application that the client, again, probably some government agency of some kind, whether it's military, police, or fire, depending on what they want. But again, I think the Jeep platform is a good platform to start with. And look, we do a lot of work with Ford. We may end up offering some sort of a Raptorized or a Broncoized Bronco, using
that
Bronco
would be
as
so
a
cool.
for future. Absolutely. Now, I mentioned it to Jim Farley here recently that I sent him some pictures of what we're working on, and I said, we'd really like to kind of do a Bronco version of this as well. So again, we're not just specifically tied to the Jeep platform, but again, it kind of depends on what the client wants, what their needs are, and we'll find the base donor vehicle and modify the vehicle kind of based upon their very specific requirements. And
just to clarify, a single private individual could come to you and also commission one of these, right? It doesn't have to be a fleet. I've got a local customer who we just built a Velociraptor 1000 Raptor R truck for,
And somehow I think I texted him a picture of it because I know he's got a ranch and likes to go off-roading. And I just sent him a picture of it. And he's like, man, when can I order one of those? So I think, I've got a friend of mine, a guy named Chris Barrett. Their family started a company called Barrett Firearms. They make that big 50 caliber rifle. And I visited their factory in Tennessee one time, and he said that half of their clients are kind of military and police agencies, and the other half of their clients are just some rich guy wanting a toy. So I don't see that being much different with the Warhawk. There'll be, hunters and outdoorsmen and people that want to do something cool off road, and then there might be the other half would be, military government agencies and police. So glad to support them either way.
I wonder about. I'm looking at all your cars on the website, and I have so much fun looking at every single one. I love the Velociraptor 500 version of the Bronco, speaking of that. But I had two questions. One, how do you continue to offer a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty on all these vehicles? Do you work with the manufacturer, or do you have to back that up yourself?
Well, again, we do have excellent relationships with Ford, Stellantis, and General Motors. But ultimately, when we pick a platform and we're going to modify it, we've got to do our diligence. So we need to start with a platform that's fairly robust. We don't want to completely reinvent the entire vehicle. So we want to work with something that already has, a good transmission and a good suspension. And so we'll evaluate the base vehicle, perform our modifications, have a period of evaluation to where we can determine whether we feel like we can offer a warranty behind it. And if we do, then we do. And typically, that's a number that we track every month. I mean, I think we're between 1% and 2% of our total revenue goes towards warranty support, so it's fairly low. So we want happy customers, and we want to be able to support them if they have an issue with their vehicle. But yeah, it does get a bit tricky that when you start getting upwards of 1,000 horsepower. So we do put some guardrails on that. If somebody, let's say, has a ZL1 Camaro and they want to send it in for the Exorcist upgrade, which is 1,000 horsepower, we'll require that vehicle to be maybe less than a year old and have less than 10,000 miles to start with, something like that. But yeah,
that makes sense.
I'm looking at the Raptor R has 1,043 horsepower after you're done with it.
Yes.
And this brings up my second question, which is the Bronco, like the Jeep, and some of these other vehicles, they look super impressive, amazing off-road capability. And I'm sure the engine's okay for a lot of people, but it is still a V6. So is there any way to put a V8 in a Bronco? It seems like something Farley doesn't care about. But
you're the second person that asked me about that today. So I've got a friend of mine who's got a place up in Michigan, and he keeps his Raptor R up there. And so he was asking me about our Velociraptor 1000 upgrade for that, and I think he's going to do that. And he said to me the question, he said, can I get a Bronco with a V8? I said, everybody would love to have a Bronco with a V8. But I said, I don't know that Ford's doing that. I said, but I'm like, with Farley at the helm, I think maybe there's a chance. So you're saying there's a chance. So who knows? I don't know anything. I don't have any inside baseball on that. But
it's funny.
I do also.
When Hannah and I talked to Jim Farley, he says nobody really wants it. But then everybody else in the entire world wants it. Yeah. So I don't know what gives there, but
I think here's my answer. I think that the EcoBoost V6 is extremely capable, and it's fun to drive, and we modify that engine, so that 3-liter EcoBoost we bump from 430 to 510 horsepower. But hey, look, Ford brought us the GTD. They did the Ford GT. They've got the Dark Horse. They're still building the pony car when, Stellantis, at least currently, is no longer offering any of the Hellcat pony cars, and GM did away with the ZL1 Camaro. So, if anybody's going to come out with some badass equipment and put a V8 in a vehicle that you're not expecting to, it would be Ford. But I don't think that's imminent. I don't think that's coming anytime soon. But I hope that maybe there's a chance that Ford would consider that at some point down the road. I would be customer number one.
So you're saying there's a chance.
That'll be customer number 2.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, John, we're talking a lot about Broncos and Raptors and that sort of thing. But of course, I always think of things like the Venom, sure. And I can't help but think if you are doing more and more tactical style vehicles, does that mean you'll be spending less time chasing records and building hypercars?
No, not at all. No, not all. No, look, we've got over 100 employees. We may end up the end of this year with 150 employees, so we can certainly multitask. So look, within the core DNA of our company is to push boundaries, is to break barriers, we just presented kind of our mission, vision, and values with our employees at a big event last week. And the last one of our company values is true grit. And we basically just borrow the quote from JFK when he had his moon speech back in the early 60s, that we don't do these things because they're easy, we do them because they're hard. So, we can modify vehicles, we can build vehicles in volume. We're building the F5. We're chasing speed records. You'll hear more about that at some point in the not too distant future. And we can also come up with new products like the Warhawk. So we can't do everything, but we like to challenge ourselves, and we like to come up with a handful of new products. Again, it's also in our core DNA that we must continually innovate. And so again, I feel like you can't just sit on your laurels and you can't just say, well, we're good at this and let's just do that and let's not do anything else. I mean, that'd be the easy way out, and that would work for the short term. But I was telling my team earlier today, I said, at some point back in 2008 or 2009, some guy called me up and said, hey, I've got a new Raptor. What can you do to it? And I thought to myself, why would anybody want to modify a Raptor? Well, had we not taken on that project, had we not stretched ourselves, and we ended up putting a twin turbo system on it, which then generated a phone call from the folks that were producing Top Gear USA at the time, and we ended up racing one of our Velociraptors against Tanner Faust. Tanner's driving the Raptor, and they're racing against Tanner's driving and racing against a halo jumper out of a plane. And when that came out on History Channel, we had 100 inquiries in the first hour.
Amazing.
So again, I don't know if anybody wants to buy the Warhawk. I think it's cool, and I think we do. We will sell some, but whether we sell 2 or we sell 200, I don't know. But like what did Ring Gretzky say? That it's a great saying. It's like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So great I'm quote. All about taking the shot. There's only so many shots we can take, but every year if we're not taking 2 or 3 shots, then I'm like, I guess I'm getting old and becoming irrelevant. I don't want to be that guy. So we're going to keep taking shots.
It's good to hear, because
that's really good to hear.
I love all the modified vehicles, but when I look at the Venom, and especially when I scroll through pictures of the interior, I just want to get in that thing.
Well, cool. Well, we need to do that.
We need to go to Texas.
We totally need to. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. That was John Hennessey from Hennessey Performance. I spent like an hour on his website before we came into the studio.
He's such a good guy. I always love talking with him, and he's just so relaxed. I mean, I feel like we can ask him anything, and he'll have a great answer. He's a straight shooter, straight talker.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And what an amazing career. I mean,
yeah.
We have had him on the show before, and so I recommend people go back and listen to that to hear about how he got started. But he really fought through adversity to create this company that is now a favorite of so many, not only car enthusiasts, but manufacturers.
Yeah, he has navigated. We all see these companies that kind of come and go, and tuners or whatever. And he has navigated and really forged what seemed to be very strong relationships with the manufacturers themselves and with his clients. And, just to have this presence for so long, I think is really a tribute to his best practices.
Right. Best practices is a great term, because he clearly also cares a lot about his employees. And he just mentioned, like, if Hennessey was publicly traded, we would have flashed that headline. He just said he's got about 100 employees and it'll get up to 150 by the end of the year. So
that's a good sign.
Real expansion there. It has been fantastic talking to you, and I'm so glad that you have stayed out of harm's way.
Thank you.
Of course, I feel for all those people who weren't able to avoid this, and it was a pretty unavoidable tragedy, just spreading literally
very
like
senseless.
wildfire.
I mean, very senseless.
Yeah. Hopefully they do bury power lines when they rebuild LA.
I would vote for that in a second.
But what do you have coming up? What's going on for Hannah Elliott next week?
That is a great question. It's no surprise this Aston Martin Vanquish loan was rescheduled. I've also got a Porsche Macan EV coming to me.
Speaking of Matt
very
Farah,
soon.
I'm pretty sure he bought one.
The EV?
Yeah, he got an electric
Oh.
Macan.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
I'll have to swap.
He
notes
had
with
been
him.
in an electric car for a while.
Right. The
Um,
Mach-E.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is his thing. Yeah, so that's kind of what's coming. It's still feeling a slightly volatile here in LA. So I actually am aware of a couple automakers rescheduling and shifting planned events that they had here in the next few weeks. But yeah, that's what I got. What about you?
I don't really have anything that exciting coming up until next month. Obviously, it's kind of winter here, so the first thing I'll get that's at all interesting, I think, is the Ram 1500 RHO, but it's not the what do you call the E-Rev truck that they have?
Oh, I don't know.
The Ram Charger. It's not the
Okay.
Ram Charger, so that's the one I'm really excited to try. But I will be spending more time with my own car. I put winter tires on my Challenger, and
Amazing.
I'm still able to do burnouts at the drop of a hat, but it's a lot of fun to
is
drive
important.
that thing around the cold roads.
Simple pleasures.
The simple pleasures of life. All right, I'm going to run over and anchor some Bloomberg TV,
Yeah, go
though,
do TV.
right now. And you stay safe.
Thanks.
I'm Matt Miller.
And I'm Hannah Elliott, and this is Bloomberg.